amazing Lauren Storm. She is our, I know, she is a phenomenal transaction coordinator. She is actually the transaction coordinator for Kim and I. And hey, Chris Wayman. So she's here today. Lauren is so dynamic. She actually, when Kim and I came to her with we were having a discussion around just getting things, our foundation set, and we were sharing them with her. And she told us about this amazing book, Profit First. So this book is so dynamic, and Lauren has like really embraced it, and she follows the structure. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. It has already been invented. So we asked her if she would come to Winning Wednesdays and share with you all how she actually follows this model. It's great. I'm glad that we're able to do it on the Zoom, because I know there were some people that wanted to be here that couldn't be here. So you guys pay attention. Lauren is amazing. And we're gonna have it on Zoom so we can go back and look at it. And actually, I was just like kind of begging Lauren if she can come back again and do something else, because she's that phenomenal. She has a whole bunch of knowledge about a lot of different things. So
Man, really
I know. Here's Lauren Storm. Okay.
Hi, thank you for the intro, Willow. My name is Lauren Storm. A little bit about me. This is my family, my husband Dan, and my two girls, Carly and Leah. Everything I do for them. So when I started my business doing transaction coordination about 2 years ago, it was to be able to build a life for us, to have the flexibility that when my kids are sick, you know, I work for myself, I can take care of them if necessary, to have the flexibility to work from anywhere. I'm 100% remote. I could be sitting on a beach in Bali and you would never know the difference. So that's my why and how I got started. I got my real estate license in 2016. Sold 2 houses, realized I do not like working with buyers and sellers. That's not my deal, but I do like the back end of it. So that's where I found a perfect spot working with an agent as his executive assistant. I'm sure you all know Mr. Josh Gossard out of the Frederick office. I was his assistant for a little over 2 years, and then started Relief Leverage. But I am not here to talk about Relief Leverage. Although if you're looking for transaction coordination or listing management, we do those items.
And she's amazing.
Well, thank you, Kim. So we have a team that works on all of those pieces. Why I start here is because what's important to me before we jump into Profit First is, what does success look like for your business? Does it look like house money? Does it look like a happy team? Maybe it looks like sitting on a beach. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, what does success look like in your business? Anyone, what does success look like for you?
Consistency.
Consistency, okay.
A mix of those 3 slides.
Right.
A mix of those 3 slides, the beach.
Yeah.
A little everything. Anyone else, what they got into real estate for, or what success looks like for you?
Helen on Zoom said the beach.
The beach, thank you, Helen.
Helping people buy houses, especially for me, the Spanish community.
Okay, so I'm just reiterating to those on Zoom can hear us. Gabby said helping people buy houses, especially in the Spanish community. Anyone else? Okay, so for me, like I mentioned, success for me looks like this picture right here. 2 smiling, happy girls sitting on a beach. I have my team behind me working. We had no worries about scheduling a vacation for time or money, and a lot of that is due to Profit First, the way we run our finances. So jumping into kind of the Profit First mindset. So our brains currently are all set on this sales minus expenses equals profit. That's how we're all, like, that's what we learn in high school, in any accounting course, in any business course. We all know that sales minus expenses equals profit. And I'm sure we've all heard of the entrepreneur. I'm not just going to put this on real estate agents, the entrepreneur that forgot to save for taxes. And then tax time came around and the money's gone. They don't have any money to pay for their tax bill. And I don't want anyone to ever be in that position. We also have the idea of meeting with your accountant for tax time. They're like, oh, look, you made $50,000 last year. And you're like, I'm looking at my bank account and I don't see $50,000 sitting in it. Where the heck did it all go? And we're all put in the situation, not all of us, I'm not saying that's all of us, but to be more mindful about where our dollars are going and telling them where to go and how to spend them, rather than at the end of the year when we're looking at them at tax time, like, great, we made so much money, but where did it all go? So I want to bring in Parkinson's law. Is anyone familiar with Parkinson's law? No? So it's the idea that the work always expands to fill however much time we have. I think it's similar to one of our gold laws. I'm looking over here. Which one is it? What you
Work
work?
expands. All work expands to fill the time.
There you go.
Yeah.
All work expands to fill the time allowed. So if we give ourselves 6 months to do something, it's going to take us 6 months. If we had set the same goal and only give ourselves a month, we would be surprised that we could get all of that work done in just 1 month. So again, going back to Parkinson's law, that work always expands to the amount of time we have. It's very similar with our money. Our money always expands, our expenses always expand to the amount of money we have. So if we look at really limiting our expenses, then we are able to create that a larger gap to the money. The other thing in looking at Parkinson's law is that if we have less money available to spend, we also find a way to do things for less. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I know in college, when I had to buy my books and I realized I only had $20 left and that was gonna last me the rest of the month, I figured out how to survive on $20. So when we really limit the amount that we have to spend, it really forces us to look for ways to do things cheaper or more efficient, or same with our time. If we realize the paper's due in 20 minutes rather than in 20 days, we find a way to make it happen. With that, I also go back to, has anyone read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? One of my favorite books. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. So when I look at this, the sales minus expenses equals profit, it really reminds me of Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he's talking about his rich dad. And he's talking about paying himself first. So really for profit first, and even in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we're talking about paying yourself first, that sales minus profit equals your expenses. And I will never, ever forget this piece in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he's talking about his rich dad. He says, you pay yourself first, no matter what. And Robert Kiyosaki's like, well, what about my bills? And he's like, have you ever not paid your bills? He's like, no, I always pay my bills. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll find it. He's like, that's why you pay yourself first. So if you pay yourself first, or you take your profit first, then you have, if you're short, you'll find a way to make it happen, whether that's whatever it takes. I know all of you are real estate agents and you're sitting in this room, so you're already here doing whatever it takes. So I know you're all capable of it. Excuse me. So with that, really the mindset piece for profit first is really changing to look at sales, taking the profit first, and then making your expenses fit on what's left. So this equation is monumental and the basis of what profits first is built off of. This also allows us, this new formula and the new way of looking at it, the sales minus profit equals expenses, allows us to make informed decisions as business owners, because we now know what we have left to spend on expenses. So rather than wondering, can I afford to hire a TC? Can I afford to hire that EA? Can I afford to boost this post? Can I afford to do the new marketing campaign? Can I afford to, you fill in the blank with whatever shiny object may be at the time, but you're able to see, this is what I have to work with. And these are my other expenses. So your office expenses, signpost installations, you know what's left over there. So to dig a little bit deeper into that and the psychology behind it, there's a theory of thought that says everyone either thinks in words or images. Anyone I talk about, I know in my brain, just like constant, like maybe squirrel here, squirrel there, and then there's like an image of this, and like, oh my God, I forgot that. And then someone's voice telling me, don't forget this. So we all think differently, but most people, and if you think about it, can either think of words or images, or a little bit of a combination of the two. Neither is better or worse than other. It's just simply a different way of how we form our thoughts. So those who think in images are better at visualizing things, which makes sense. If you're thinking images, you visualize things. And that doing those tasks require pictures, like a reading sheet music, or where the word thinkers sometimes struggle with this, but are better at other things. A lot of people have a mixture of words and images, and just a few think in totally abstract concepts. So equations, bringing this back in, equations and calculations of any kind can be really tough for people to grasp because it requires them to literally change the way you think. And I don't know how many of you have literally tried to change the way you think. It's really hard. It takes a lot of practice. It's a really difficult habit to build, but it is possible. This is why so many entrepreneurs who are incredibly capable, creative, intelligent, and hands-on in their businesses really struggle with their accounts. They think in words or pictures, not numbers. So I aim not to bore you entirely with numbers today. So having the profit at the end of the equation, so when we're looking at it like this, we have profit at the end of the equation, it tricks our brain into thinking of profit last. So in thinking of profit last, sorry, I lost my place here. Having profit at the end of the equation is for most people a clear indication that it's the end result of your efforts. So how many of us think like, oh, I sell 10 houses, I'm gonna make X amount of dollars. That's the profit at the end. So we're looking at that final piece. It's a visual cue and a matter of word order, making it difficult for non-number people who are, by the way, in the majority, to make it a priority because it comes last. It's what's left over after you've done everything else. We naturally focus on things that come first, and when profit is at the end of the equation, we seek to increase it by increasing the front. So how many times have you said, okay, we just need to increase revenue, and that will increase our profits? So if I just sell another house, calling out Josh Gossard, because I know he would have no problem telling you, but I remember in working with Josh, I would get on, I'm like, we need to cut our expenses back. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, we'll just sell another house. We'll just sell another house. We'll just sell another house, which is great if you're selling another house. But again, it brings us back to focusing on that front piece of the revenue piece, not necessarily the profit or the expenses. So reducing expenditure is something that simply doesn't occur to many people. And if it does, it's swiftly followed by thoughts of, I can't cut all these expenses. They're absolutely essential. I have plenty to cover all of these expenses with money left over. I don't need to reduce them. And I don't know about you, but we were looking at my budget, my husband and I, the other week, and we're looking at how can we cut back to save. We want to buy an investment property by the end of the year. So what can we do to cut back on different things to be able to save more towards this investment property? And I know it's difficult looking at that budget. You're like, but I like getting my nails done every 2 weeks. And he likes going out with the boys for a drink on Saturday night, but really looking at what expenses can we cut back on and reduce to get us where we want to be. So rather than having to work harder and create more revenue, where can we find the dollars in eliminating expenses to create therefore more profit? This is where profit first comes in, because the simple reframing used to place the profits before expenses means that the expenses are the end result. So when we're looking at this equation and the expenses are at the end, we now can begin to switch our mindset and thought process that the expenses are a result of our revenue minus our profit. So again, bringing the profit piece first. Is everyone with me so far? Any questions or aha so far?
I like this. I think sometimes when you work for yourself, sometimes you're guilty paying yourself first for whatever reason, but I like the perspective that, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's not only paying yourself first, but knowing that like this is my money. Like I've spread it apart. I know my expenses are covered, and we'll get into the details of it later, but knowing like it's totally okay to pay myself this because that's in my account. It's good. So the age-old question in Profit First is growth before profit or profit before growth. Which one seems to make more sense? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. So when we look at growth before profit, this is the common problem a lot of businesses face. They devote years of effort to consistently increasing sales. Year on year, their numbers go up, and they continually invest in new technology, methods, staff, and other things that seem vital to their continued efforts and growth. They have a goal in mind. Maybe it's 1 million in sales, maybe it's 10 million in sales, maybe it's even 100 million sales, but somewhere there's a magic number. If they can just reach that number, they'll have made it and they'll be successful. And even when that number feels ludicrously high, it's often very achievable. Just keep pushing those numbers up year after year, and eventually your revenue will hit the magic number. Well, that's a bit of an extreme example. It's a common problem. Bless you. Businesses invest so much in growth that they have little or even zero profits to show for it. And while business is booming and turnover is skyrocketing, profits never grow at all. Growth is put before profit in the belief that it will lead to profit, but what actually happens is you sacrifice profit for the sake of growth. If this goes on, you can end up in serious trouble, and so can your business, because that type of growth is unsustainable. So I don't know, has anyone here been to family reunion? No, I think it was all virtual last year, I think.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, but Gary Keller for family reunion. So they have all these mega agents, and they come up and share like what they've done to build their businesses and how they got there. So just in the past, I believe it's 2 years, I can't remember, it might just be one. Gary Keller finally required that if you were going to be on stage, you had to submit a copy of your P&L to Gary Keller to review to ensure you were profitable. Because it doesn't make sense for people to show you, this is how I run my business and I run a successful business, when at the end of the day, if it's not profitable, what are we in business for? So absolutely, we're in business to help people, and that's the heart of what we do. But again, we all have bills to pay and lives we want to live, and that's part of the Keller Williams, a life by design that does require money. So let's maximize our profits by reducing expenses so that we can create that life by design. So the true answer is actually growth through profit. And profit first allows us to profit our business to allow for growth, because we're looking at it differently and we can see our expenses as for what they are after we've taken profit. We are able to hold the profit to see, do I have enough to hire that assistant? If I stop working tomorrow, can my business sustain for 3 months until I can get back to work? For example, if you had a baby or if you were in a car accident, like what does that look like to be able to sustain your business? Has it been profitable? So you have that savings account to take care of those situations. When you're creating real profit in your business, you're in a position to invest in true growth opportunities when they occur. And you're able to do it without putting your current business and the success you have achieved in it at risk. 6 months down the line, if it proves to be less than profitable, your existing profit margin before you extended will still be there. You may have failed to increase it, but you certainly wouldn't have decreased it. It's natural to want to put all of your profits back into your business, thinking you're planting the seeds for growth. But what you're actually doing is sowing a future of disaster, like we talked about. If all of the profits are feeding the growth, if the growth is, I got my words messed up now. If you're putting the growth before the profit, that's when you're spending that money before it's there. So even thinking you're investing the profit back into it, it comes at a cost, and we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. You can still hit your magic number and you can still grow. With the profit first system, you have a profit buffer that protects your business and ensures that every stage of growth is sustainable. So this is where we're talking about if you're saving your profit, and we'll get into like the logistics of it, and saving 6 months worth of expenses, that you are able to invest in the growth and still sustain the business. So we all know, if we took a new lead generation tactic on, if we were looking at farming, we all know farming is a long-term play. You're not going to send mailers for 1 month and, oh my goodness, we get all these sales. Farming is a long-term, at least a year. So if you have the profit set aside, then you know you can invest into the farming and still sustain your regular expenses, take on the added expense of the advertising for farming, and are still able to sustain without going under because you took a new marketing avenue that takes time to pay off dividends. Does anyone have questions so far?
That's good.
So jumping into profit first, the idea of profit first, the meat and potatoes, is to have 5 + 2 accounts. So we're looking at opening up 5 accounts. You would have an income account, an operating expense account, an owner compensation account, a tax account, and a profit account. So you open up 5 accounts, and I'll come back to the screen, but we're looking for local community banks are generally your best bet. So because you're looking for accounts where you don't have to have minimum balances, they don't charge you for transfers, that you can transfer to an outside bank. You're looking for, what other pieces? It's been a while since I looked at mine. So really they're your community banks, like the bank I bank with. I don't get any statements in paper because they charge me for that, but I have 5 accounts. They're all business checking accounts. They don't charge me a dime. There's no minimum because they know I know my income account is going to be at 0 at least twice a month. So there's no monthly minimum balances. There's unlimited transfers, and they allow transfers to an outside bank. So those are the most important things you're looking for. And shop around. You can totally yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Why do you say it's gonna be at least 0 twice a month?
We'll get into that in just a second, because that's part of the transferring to tell your money where to go. Yeah.
So when you say community, like your credit unions or something like that?
So it's a matter, if, we'll get to free resources at the end. He has a list of banks that are profit first friendly. But I would call around and no different, you're fine, you're totally fine. No different than like our buyers shop lenders. Absolutely shop the banks and let them know like XYZ bank down the street will do all this for me. This is what this is gonna look like. Can you support it and support me in this decision or not? I'll be 100% honest. When I sat down with the banker at the bank at, he was like, you want what? You want how many accounts? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I don't care if you think it makes sense. This is what works for me. And this is the proven model and a proven system. So throw your idea of banking and accounting out the window and please do what I'm asking you to do and open me 5 accounts and never charge me a dime.
Where I walk.
Exactly. Or I'm gonna bank it down the street. So the 5 accounts we have are the income account. The income account is where all of your money goes into. So any dime that comes in, whenever you get it, is deposited into the income account. That's where everything lives. Now, twice a month, this is why your income account is gonna go to 0. You are going to transfer certain percentages to each of the other 4 accounts. So the operating expense, the owner compensation, the tax, and the profit. So which will in turn leave your income account with a 0 balance because you're gonna take all of the money out of it and tell it where it's supposed to go. That X amount of percent goes to what I'm getting paid. X amount percent goes to my expenses. X amount goes to tax for savings so that we can pay our estimated tax bills and not be caught with our pants around our ankles at tax time. And then a percentage that we're taking for profit first. The other 2 accounts are a tax hold account and a profit hold account. So we all know we have the temptation when we're looking at our savings account and we're like, oh man, there's a lot of money in it and I really want to go on vacation. You know, I'm just gonna like transfer this over, or maybe it's not vacation, maybe it's, wow, that pair of sunglasses, they look really nice and I really want them. And you know what? I'll just take that money out of savings and put that in my account and I'll go buy them, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with treating yourself. That's not what I'm getting at here at all by any means. But if the money's out of sight, it's easy to forget about it. So that's where once a month, you're going to transfer the tax money to a second bank. So you have a second bank, you're going to open 2 accounts, a tax account and a profit account. And you're only ever gonna put money into those accounts until you have to pay your taxes or you're taking profit dividends. So you transfer from the tax account to the tax hold account. So you don't see, oh my goodness, there's $5,000 there. And you know, someone just knocked on my door with a really cool video marketing and ad campaign. And I think I'm just gonna take that 5,000 and put it there. You can't see it, out of sight, out of mind, so it's still saved for taxes. So that's where you have the 5 income accounts. Yeah. No, this is perfect. This is all the questions.
Hey, so then one more time, okay, so you got, with your taxes, okay, so create out your income plan. So the percentage that you put from your income to the tax, you take what's in the tax and you put that into the bank too. And that's gonna be your tax code, or you also still have money in the second account for taxes?
That's a great question. And I'm gonna get to it in just a minute. So I'm gonna run through this slide and then we'll get one more and then we'll bring it all together with an example so it all makes sense. Because I know you're like, what is this crazy lady talking about? Right? I'm sure this does it. It's like, this is really foreign and I'm having a hard time getting it. Okay, so we've got the community banks. The next piece is our taps and caps. So I'm gonna leave our screen here and we'll go ahead and take a look at, actually, did everyone get a handout?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're actually gonna do an exercise together and we'll kind of revisit those last 3 slides together with this piece. So does everyone have this on their handout? Okay. So this is the Profit First Assessment Form to give you an idea of where you stand currently, what your percentages are now. So how many people in the room are like brand new, maybe less than a year in the business, maybe less than 6 months? Okay, awesome, perfect. That's a great place to start. So having set up your accounts and gotten too far into it, that's an awesome place to start because you're able to pick the percentages you want to follow now. For anyone that's been doing it longer and have your accounts in just one account and you like to do your own thing, totally fine. That's where these, the taps and the caps come in. So our taps, if we go back to screen, taps are our target allocation percentages and the caps are our current allocation percentages. Taps are our targeted allocation percentages and caps are our current allocated percentages. Now that I've given just enough information to make myself sound like a crazy person and everyone wonder what the heck is going on, let's take a look at what these kinds of things look like. So when we're talking about our income account, so if you look on, go ahead, is there a question? This other graphic you have here are the recommended target allocation percentages based upon your revenue range. So you can see at the top, like depending on how much money you're making, these are suggested. And if you have current ones, which we'll get to in a minute, these would be the targets you're working towards. So for example, my business, I fall in column A. My revenue is between $0 and $250,000, and I follow those percentages almost to a T. Almost to a T. My tax, I have a little less, like full transparency. I do my tax at 10% and my operating expense at 35%, because my husband works a 40-hour-a-week job and pays as many as all the taxes they'll take out. So he pays the majority of our tax bill. So I have to worry less about what my estimated taxes are, but that's a conversation for your accountant. So when we're looking at this, so if we look at income, we're talking about income. So let's say we had, for sake of easy numbers, we had a $5,000 commission check come in on, let's say, July 16th. And then we had another $5,000 commission check come in on the 20th. So our income account has a total of $10,000. So when we're transferring on our, okay.
Investing $10,000.
Yes.
Helen has a question. Hold on just a second.
Hey guys, sorry to be a pest, but I can't read what's on the board because the camera's it's pulled all the way back to show both screens and you. So is there any way that the camera can just get closer or zoom in or?
You know how to zoom in?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. How's that?
That's better. Yes, thank you.
I'm glad you know how to do it. Okay, so if we had, for example, when it comes to the time of the month to transfer, we're at $10,000 in our income account. So we would then take, if we're following column A, just for ease of math, 5% of the $10,000 to our profit account. So anyone 5% of 10,000?
500.
500? So we'll transfer 500 to our profit account. Then we'll take 15% to our tax account. So that would put us at 1,500.
Mhm.
We would take, let's see, I went out of order here. So profit, we did the 5%. Owner's pay at skip would be 50%. So 50% would be 5,000. And then our operating expense would be at 30% of that. So we would take 3,000. So we look at this and total it up. This should always equal the total amount we had in our income account. So 5,000, 8,000, 9,500, another 500. We have a total of 10,000. So our money didn't go anywhere. We haven't spent any of it. We haven't sent any of it anywhere. We just allocated it. So now we know out of the $10,000 we made in July, 3,000 is there for our operating expenses. So this includes your office fees, your signpost installations, what else? Your Google Suite account, your whatever that may be, all of that fits into your operating expenses. So when you're paying your bills, paying any bills, you're paying out of the operating account. I personally use a credit card for the recurring transactions because it's easier for me and then I can keep track of them. And then I pay the credit card with my operating expense money each month. The tax account, I now have $1,500 set aside to pay my taxes next year. I have $5,000 to pay myself, and I have $500 in my profit account. Is everyone good on that? Okay, cool. So this is like the basic version of that first transfer you're going to do. Yes, ma'am.
And what's the difference between the paying yourself and profit?
So operating account, that is, that's like what I pay myself my salary out of. The profit account, that sits there and grows. I transfer it over to the profit hold account. And that's actually the profit of the business. So I take a dividend of that because I'm the owner of my business. I took the risk to start the business and grow it. So I receive dividends from my business. And so every quarter I take half of that and half of what's in the profit account is mine. And that's my bonus for being a business owner. Sometimes I look at it as if you've done it for, the book recommends you hold it for a year and at the end of the year you could make purchases. Maybe you needed a new car for your business and there's enough in the profit account to invest in the business that way. Or I looked at, full disclosure here, I spilled a whole cup of tea on my MacBook about a month ago and I was brought to tears. I literally thought I was going to die. Like I can't do anything without my MacBook. I took it to a wonderful company in Frederick. They cleaned it. It was like $175. He said I got it there like soon enough. Granted, I was driving there like I had a patient in an ambulance because I was that sad. It arrived, he cleaned it, it's totally fine, but I realized I don't have a backup computer. That if I had really killed my computer that day, what am I going to do? Went to my profit account, there was more than enough in there. I'm like, you know what? I'm buying myself an iPad with a keyboard and now I have a backup. But that didn't have to come out of my operating expenses because the profit was set aside and I made the conscious decision to take that profit and buy an iPad. So the profit is dividends. It's also if you're on a big team and maybe you have a ton in the profit account, that's the opportunity for you to profit share to your team members. So the profit is really to reward yourself. Profit as what it should be. The reason we're in business, to take your family on a Disney vacation or go to Aruba or whatever that looks like. Does that answer your question for the difference between the owner comp? Okay. So the owner comp piece, that is what like my monthly expenses I have based upon my husband's income and my income, like what I need to do to cover my bills, and that's what I pay myself.
So I have a question on that.
Sure.
Lauren. So when you pay your personal bill, are you still doing it from your operating expenses or are you writing yourself a check for another personal account?
That's an excellent question. So I personally, and I recommend you do the same, keep your business and your personal finances separate, completely separate. You should have a bit, even if you're not gonna follow profit first, I would recommend you have a business account for your business. And that should be under, again, I am not a tax attorney or an accountant or a tax advisor of any kind, but I would recommend you have an LLC. So you would have your LLC and that would be your business account, and then you would have personal. So for example, out of my operating account, I'm paying my team member salary. I'm paying my technology fees for my business. I'm paying for marketing and those kinds of things. The owner account, I write myself a check for, if I was putting 5,000 on my owner account a month, maybe I pay myself $2,500 twice a month. So that $2,500 would come to me, and that would be for my electric and my groceries and my safe rent, those kinds of things. They are completely separate. I'm writing it just myself a check twice a month out of the account. Okay.
Okay, so you write a check to yourself twice a month from your LLC to yourself, you just send it to yourself.
Yes, I do it as a bank transfer. So like the bank I use, all of my accounts are in Relief Leverage LLC, and then I have a bank transfer twice a month, so I don't have to think about it. That magically sends to my personal account.
Okay.
So I don't know how it works, taxes confuses, so did you like take the taxes out of what you're?
No, one of the benefits of a business owner is that your business will pay your personal taxes for you. Because if you are an LLC or a sole proprietor, it looks a little bit different when you get into the higher S corps and those kinds of things. Again, I am not a tax attorney, a tax advisor, or an accountant. But when you get into those other pieces, the taxes are a little bit different, and I'm not positive exactly how they're filed. My business is filed as an LLC, so it's a sole proprietor. So all of my taxes are the same as a business. All my accountant puts it all together. So really, this tax account is paying my husband and I personal tax bill along with the business because I'm the only owner of the business.
When you're writing yourself a check from the business, are you certifying those funds, or how do you write that check? You just say owner's draw, salary, I mean.
So when I first started, I had like the starter checks they gave me.
Yeah.
That didn't even have like anything in the top corner, and I wrote like Lauren Storm and the amount of money, and I signed it and I took it to my bank. That was fun for it. Once I figured out how to get the online banking to work, like I said, it's a transfer from my business account straight to my personal account that happens just twice a month.
Okay, so, because with the LLC, I thought the funds had to be certified, so that shows in your book that you're paying like the owner's draw, not just
So,
spending money from.
so I
your-
keep
from your
track of it in
business.
QuickBooks. I do keep everything in QuickBooks. So I have all 5 of my accounts hooked up to QuickBooks so I can see things. I transfer them in QuickBooks. I record everything in QuickBooks. So you will see, hey, there was Lauren's paycheck that came out. And in QuickBooks, it's classified as owner's compensation. So my accountant knows that. But there's nothing in the like profit first system to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone good there? Okay, so I'm gonna give you the 2 most important numbers you remember in profit first when it comes to transfers. That is the 10th and the 25th. So you do your transfers on the 10th and the 25th. I have also moved all of my personal bills to the 10th and the 25th because it feels amazing to sit down only 2 days a month and pay my bills and never have to worry about another one. So to be able to use the 10th and the 25th, does it need to be zoomed back out again? I don't know if they,
Say it again.
does the camera need to be zoomed back out? Can they?
Oh,
see
yes.
the screens?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes,
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
that's okay.
So with the 10th and the 25th, you figure out any bills that are due between the 10th, the 25th and the 10th, and you're gonna pay those on the 10th, so they're not late. So anything, actually, I'm saying that wrong. Any bills you would have due between the 10th and the 25th, you would pay on the 25th. Any bills that are due between the 25th and the 10th, you're gonna pay on the 10th. So there's nothing that's ever behind. So if you have a bill due on the 2nd, that gets paid on the 25th because you're ahead of it. If you have a bill due on the 15th, you're gonna pay that one on the 10th. So you categorize your bills on what is the payment date that would make them early, the 10th or the 25th? And then you pay your bills out of the operating account on the 10th or the 25th. I pay myself on the 10th and the 25th. I do my transfers on the 10th and the 25th. So I have about a half an hour of time blocked on my calendar on the 10th and the 25th to pay my personal bills, to make my transfers, and pay my credit card bill on my business account. So everything happens on the 10th and the 25th. You can ask my 2 teammates, when did they get paid? On the 10th and the 25th.
So you said, so you're paying your bills from operating expenses?
I'm paying my business bills from the operating account. But I've used Profit First for my personal life and my business. So that's where I pay myself my paycheck and then I sit down and I pay my personal bills on the 25th as well. They come from my personal checking account, but I pay my electric bill and my cable bill and whatever else. that goes to.
Gotcha, and you said you use your credit card for the
So
reoccurring bills, does that help with your business credit?
I don't use it for my business credit. I took agent financials with Mr. Brandon Green about 3 years ago, and he terrified me because he said, business bank accounts are not federally insured. And then if you use a debit card from your business, and I don't know the truth of this, I know he was sharing his experience, and I don't know if this is every bank, but he shared with the class that he had a debit card he was using for his business bank account. And some lovely person stole his account information and started using his business bank account. Because his business bank account was not federally insured, as some business bank accounts are not, he was not able to get that money back. He was not able to go after it. He was not able to have anyone refund it because they are not insured. So that's where I personally don't use a debit card for any of my business bank accounts. And I use a credit card, so then I know a credit card I can dispute. A credit card, if it's a fraudulent charge, they're gonna give it back to me, and then I just pay my credit card bill. Again, I'm not saying every account is like that. I would check with your bank and your accountant and everything else, but after I heard that story, I was absolutely terrified and decided never to use a debit card with my business bank account.
We have a question.
Sure.
I want to ask a question here.
I don't know if I need this class.
Or this is good. I have a comment while she's looking that up. Another bonus of paying your bills twice a month is that it boosts your credit score.
Okay.
Yeah, that is something that I learned through
understanding credit and how the credit companies rate your credit score, that this is a way of tricking the credit bureaus into building up, boosting up your credit score.
Wow,
So
I
this
didn't
is
know that.
actually how I teach my daughter and what I do.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah,
love
and you're paying with a credit card,
Right.
so you're paying it twice a month. And you're giving
So
yourself a
I thought
boost.
I love that, and I had no idea, so I thought it was like hot stuff, and like I get out of college, and I get my own house, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put all my bills and when they're due on the calendar, and I'm gonna like remember, and then it's like, oh crap, I forgot this one's due this day, and this one's due that day. You find yourself paying bills like every other day, and you're like, wow, how does this happen? Where if you move it to those 2 days, it takes me, like I said, 30 minutes, twice a month, and I don't have to worry about it, and I don't have to worry about like, oh crap, did that get paid because that was due on this day? I actually don't even know what day my bills are due anymore because I just religiously pay them on the 10th and the 25th. And I know which ones I have to pay.
But when I bought my car, that's what the guy explained, and I think you pay interest on one part, none of the other, in just about your going now. And then I think one counts for the interest and the other one just as a towards your.
Interesting.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah, I wasn't really- So I don't actually split my bills at all. I don't like pay half on the 10th and half on the 25th. I just pay the whole bill so that they're paid before their due date. So, was there a question?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, no worries. So the next piece of then is, as you can see, I conveniently put both of these dates before the 25th. So if we got paid, so we did our transfers on the 25th. And then let's say we're having like a really awesome July and we got another $10,000 commission check on July 28th. And because we do things on the 10th and the 25th, let's say we got another commission check on August 8th for, I like to give myself easy numbers. So we made another $10,000 on the 8th. So our income account, if we're going to calculate that over here, on 7/25, we had $10,000 in it. We transferred everything out so that we had a zero balance. On the 28th, we had 10,000. On the 8th, we had 10,000. So when we got to August 10th and we're ready to do our transfers, we now have 20,000 in our income account. So if we go back to our percentages in column A, we now have $20,000 on August 10th. So we're going to take 50% of that to owner's comp. So we've got $10,000 here. We're going to take 5% to profit. So we've got $1,000 in profit. We're going to take 30%, or I'm sorry, 15% to tax. So that puts us at 3,000 tax, and then our last one, our operating account, is 30%. So we will have 6,000 in our operating account. So as you can see, because we already had some balances in there, this equals 20,000. We now have 9,000 in our operating account, 4,500 in our tax account, 15,000 in our owner's expenses, and 1,500 in our profit account. Now, when you're looking at these, this is not these accounts, these numbers, obviously we didn't show paying any bills ourselves, but the tax account and the profit account, they're just going to keep growing because we're saving them and we're transferring that over to the other banks so they're out of sight, out of mind. With that, we've probably paid our expenses out of here. So this is probably maybe looking like if our expenses were $1,000 a month, maybe we're looking at more like $7,000. If we paid ourselves $2,500 a month, this would be 2 paychecks. So this is probably looking like $10,000 for taking some of those expenses out. But you can see, I now can look at my account and say, you know what? I've been working really hard. I want to give myself a raise. I have $10,000. I'm not going to take the $10,000, but okay, I was paying myself $2,500 a pay period twice a month. Maybe now, after looking at the past couple months, I always have money left over there. Maybe I want to pay myself $3,000 twice a month now. Or the other way to look at it is I have $10,000 still in it. if I'm paying myself $5,000 a month, I have 2 months of my salary here. So some of us may look at that as like, cool, I could go chill for 2 months because I have my salary sitting there. Or I could take a vacation because I have that, I know I'm covered. Or you could look at it as, I only have 2 months, I need to get my butt out there and lead generate more so that there's more in that account that lasts me 6 months. But it gives you the opportunity to look at your business to make those decisions rather than, I just need more money personally this month, so I just take what I need. You actually are telling yourself when you can have a raise. And then you're also looking from your personal expenses, you're on a steady income now because you figured out what your monthly expenses are, what you need to take from it, and you're paying yourself accordingly rather than like, hey, we have like 3 big closings. We're going and renting a yacht for the weekend and I'm inviting all my friends and we're having all the champagne and we're having a party because I had a bunch of money. So it really just stabilizes your life back to know what can I afford. It also helps you save towards the goal, save towards whatever savings goal you have, or if you're looking at buying an investment property, or maybe you want to bring on the assistant, like what are my monthly expenses looking like? What am I carrying in those accounts to be able to make educated business decisions?
Laura, what do you think for transferring from the taxes to the tax holding?
So on the 10th and the 25th, you can do it once a month or you can do it twice a month. I generally do it just once a month. I take what's in the tax account. So if I was going to do that on the 10th of each month, I would take this $4,500 and put it at the second bank. So if I bank with PNC, I wouldn't recommend PNC, they charge you lots of fees, but if you banked at PNC for your 5 accounts here and you banked at Bank of America for your hold accounts, I would take the $4,500 from PNC and take it to Bank of America so that it's out of sight, out of mind for my taxes. If I knew I had a quarterly tax payment coming up, I may leave in here just what I need for that tax payment and then transfer the rest over. Same thing with the profit account. So that this $1,500 isn't eating a hole in my pocket. Let's go put that in the Bank of America account so it's out of sight, out of mind.
You do a savings account for the tax hold?
So in the book, they do recommend using savings accounts for the hold accounts.
And those 2 additional accounts, it really is only for the out of sight, out of mind concept, right?
Yes.
Not,
Yeah.
it doesn't have enough.
No, it's completely for the out of sight, out of mind. So coming back to that, when we're talking about the profit account and paying yourself dividend out of it, the book gets into more detail that you took the risk as the business owner. You deserve to have to reap the rewards. So that quarterly, you're taking half what's in the profit account. At that point, you would go to the whole account and take half what's in it and pay yourself. He does talk about in the book, if you have debt and you're trying to pay debt off, 1, if you have debt, to debt freeze, to stop spending anything you don't have, to stop increasing your debt number. And that instead of taking half of that profit money and putting it in your personal account as a dividend, that you would take half of the profit money and pay off your debt so that you're getting yourself out of the debt.
I'm sorry, which account did you say was a savings account?
The tax hold account and the tax profit, or in the profit hold account. They're at different banks. Yeah.
So you do this twice a month, like this whole system?
Yeah.
So this is part of your 30 minutes of making notes?
Yep.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I have a spreadsheet. I'm all about systems, making my life easier. So I have a spreadsheet and I take whatever numbers in my income account and I pop it in the spreadsheet, and on the date, like whether it's the 10th or the 25th, my percentages are already in there. It tells me what I need to transfer. I go to my bank account and I just transfer what needs to be transferred. That part probably takes all of like 2 minutes. Questions so far? Okay, so a little bit more interactive then. I would like us all to try a hand at the instant assessment. So this is what Michael McAlowitz, who wrote Profit First, has everyone do to figure out like where you are, what are your caps, your current allocation percentages. I know a lot of you said you were new to the business, so it's pretty easy for you if you don't have those in place already, or if you don't have excessive spending and your numbers aren't all over the place. If you're just starting a business, like when I started my business, it was really easy to say like, all right, I'm just gonna follow column A and those are the percentages I'm working off of. If you're already kind of moving forward in your business and these percentages, whichever column you fit in, don't seem reasonable, we're gonna take a look here to see where you stand currently, and then how he works to get you where you want to be. So maybe when we do this next exercise, your profit percentage is only 1% and you really wished it was 20%. So there's no way for us to like make that jump right away. And it's not advisable for you to like go in head first and be like, next check, I'm getting 20% that's going to the profit account. That's not reasonable. So he really sets out a path for the target, where we want to go, the target allocation percentages, and our current, so that we can slowly get there without being overwhelmed. So I invite you all to take out the handout worksheet and kind of work through your numbers here. The other key to Profit First is don't overthink it. I know I've given you a lot of information. I'm sure it can seem overwhelming. I know it was extremely overwhelming to me when I first saw it. The other thing, I tend to get really sucked into the details, like I don't know which percentages to use, or what if my business really isn't like that business, maybe I should do something else. Stop. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. If you're not sure about percentages, stick with the ones in this column here and work from there. So I invite you, I'll work through a sample one here, but we can kind of work through it together. If you want to, and again here, don't overthink this. An eraser.
Look on the other side maybe, or in this drawer here. Yeah. This is awesome.
I should have brought all my kids with me. They love like the So I'm not gonna draw the whole chart here, but we'll go through the numbers. So actual. We want to kind of work on this together. Anyone have an actual, you don't have to share your actual revenue number, but a top line revenue number that someone would want to work off $100,000 or
Sure.
$100,000 revenue. Cool. So our top line here. And I invite you to do this for your own business. You don't have to share. I'm not going to call anyone out and make you share your numbers by any means, but to work on and figure out where your current allocation percentages are based upon your spendings. So materials and subs, that would be, it doesn't really apply to a real estate business. Materials and subs are like money you have to pay out before you can pay anything else. So like, for example, I have a TC I work with. She is considered a subcontractor. I pay her as a 1099. So I have a split with her. So every check that comes in, if she worked it, she automatically gets X amount of dollars out of it and the rest is mine. So my materials and subs, I actually would have something here because I'm paying her before I pay anything else. But the materials and subs really works with like construction. Like if you have to buy materials like labor or wood or whatever that looks like, things you have to pay out that like if you don't pay them out, kind of like a cost of sales. If they're not paid out, you don't actually have anything to do.
So, we have our Uber connection that we're paying for, so the 10,000 that we did on the last example, that's in our pocket or is that?
Right, so you can look at that one of two ways. So you can, and that really depends, it depends on how in-depth detail you wanted to get to look at it. If you wanted to.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
She just needs a hand.
If you wanted to really get like the nitty-gritty, I think it's easier to just do with what you have in your account. So, and to know that like they took off the top, but they took off the top, whether that's part of your office fee or I actually count the office fee I used to pay or to hang my license as an operating expense. I think it's easier for us to just take the amount we actually get and you can account for what you pay the brokerage in your accounting system, QuickBooks or that kind of thing. So materials and subs, those are the things that you wouldn't have work if you didn't buy them. So like you can't build a deck if you didn't buy the wood, those kinds of things. So we don't really have materials and subs. So I'm going to put 0 here. Real revenue. So your real revenue would be the top line minus your materials and subs. And you can see that's 100%. So since we don't have any materials and subs, we still have $100,000 And you can see that that is 100%. When we're looking at our profit first percentages. So profit, so maybe our tax accountant told us we made $5,000 last year. Sounds really sad at 100,000, but you'll see where this makes sense. So if we looked at our numbers, maybe our profit last year was, I'm sorry, $5,000. So this is where, if you've been in the business, you should have a P&L, and even if you're new in the business, you should have a P&L to know you could do this on a monthly basis if you don't want to look at the whole year to figure out where your percentages were of what your profit was for the month. Your owner's pay, what did you pay yourself? Let's see, and all of these numbers have to equal 100,000. So maybe we paid ourselves $60,000. And then maybe for taxes, we weren't very ambitious and we saved $10,000 for taxes. So let's see, that puts us at $75,000, which means our operating expenses, we spent $25,000. And we do want to make sure that these four add up to 100,000. So we've got 25, 35, 95, 100,000. So we better numbers here. So our current, so the numbers we would pick here would be the numbers we're trying to get when they're saying the profit first numbers here. So in this column, the numbers that we are trying to achieve, which would be, if we're looking at this, we made $100,000, we'd be using column A. So we would want our percentages to be, let's see, profit 5%. Owner's pay, percent. Tax would be 15%. And operating would be 30%. So this is the goal. This is what we're trying to hit based on that column A. So then our next column would be the profit first money. So of these numbers, if we followed our profit first percentages against our 100,000, we would have done 5,000 in profit, 5% of 100,000. I feel like I'm standing in front of you guys. 50% of the 100,000, which would put us at $50,000 for owner comp. 15% of the 100,000 for our tax, which would put $15,000 in our tax. And then 30% of our 100,000 for the operating. So then we look at, they call it the bleed, and I want to double check. I can't remember if he puts percentages there or the, he puts the numbers. Okay. So if we're looking at the bleed or the difference, he calls it delta. It should have been, so we're looking at the difference between what we actually had in profit and what our percentages should have had. So our profit, we were actually, there's zero difference. We were dead on. With our owner comp, we were over by $10,000. Our tax, we were under by $5,000. And our operating account, we were under by $5,000. So then when we're looking at the fix in the column, the fix would be we need to decrease our owner comp because we were obviously above. Our profit was on target, so we're good there. Our tax, we need to increase for our tax liability. And our operating account, we need to increase. So this assessment gives you an idea of where you are currently, what you currently spent, what you did last month, last week, last year, the percentages you want to work towards, what those numbers need to be that you're working towards, and then what we need to do to the percentages to increase or decrease them. So based upon this model, we would then, let's figure out what our current percentages are. So our profit, which is our current allocation percentage, would be at 5%. Our current allocation percentage would be 60% for owner comp. For tax, it would be at 10%. And for operating, we would be at 25%. So then when we're comparing these numbers, the percentages, it's essentially the same. We need to decrease and increase. So what he's saying is quarterly, you would leave profit alone. We need to decrease this. So maybe we would next quarter, when we're looking at this, decrease our owner's comp to 58%. And we would add a percentage of tax and a percentage to operating account, so that we would be working towards getting ourselves to 50 without saying tomorrow, like, hey, you can't have $60,000 anymore, you have to have 50. But that's, so each quarter you would look at it and change it by a percentage or two, fluctuate things to get to your target allocation percentage. And that's where we're talking, where we had tax and caps earlier. So you're always working towards, yep,
So that second one, that's your target.
this is the target, and this is what we pulled off of this column. So this table is targets for businesses based upon revenue. You may find that your percentages are way different than this, or that your goal percentages are way different. That's totally fine. You can totally figure out what makes sense for you. Like maybe you want a 20% profit margin and can figure out how to have your owner's comp only be 30% so that you're working the other pieces. Like those are totally up to you. These are just suggestions that he makes in the book based upon different revenue numbers.
Yeah, looking at it, I was always under the impression that we pay more than 15% taxes. I forget kind of, but we had, I thought we were closer to 30 to 40%.
So some of that is, this accounts for the percentages he has here, and why he does it this way is that your operating expenses reduce your revenue, and that's where he gets to the tax amount. And he explains it more in depth in the book. Again, I am not a tax attorney, a tax advisor, or an accountant. I have heard the 30 before, and it really depends. Again, that would be a conversation you'd want to have with your accountant. And maybe it's possible if he tells you, like, you do need to save 30% for your taxes, and you need to adjust the other ones accordingly. Is there a question, or is that someone?
People trying to get in.
Okay. Any other questions there? So the two common problems, and we kind of touched on these a lot. When we're looking at implementing profit first, don't get bogged down in the details. Like it's really easy to get caught up in the details. The other thing is it's not permanent. So if you want to follow 30% for taxes, you can. And if that's not working for you, and if that's not working for you, you can change it. Or if you're following 15% and your tax account's like, really, you should have saved more than that, you can change it. They're not set in stone. These are not concrete. These are all recommendations. So like, don't get too bogged down in the details. The other piece of that is in splitting your money apart this way. Maybe your tax liability was more and the 15% wasn't enough. Well, you should have your profit set aside. Not that you want to take profit from taxes, but you should have the money set aside to be able to pay your taxes and then adjust your percentages so that next year you have the right amount in the tax account. So it allows you to make the business decisions to know, rather than looking at your account, it gives us the ability to look at our expense account and see actually what's there, rather than seeing, oh my goodness, we have $100,000 in my account. I can do whatever I want, not remembering that I still have to pay my taxes and I still want to have profit and I still want to have a salary that I can live off of, rather than, oh, we had $100,000 this month, but I got $10,000 next month. That feels very different. So it allows us really to see, like, what do I have to spend right now? Yes.
It's like a month to month, or like a 2 week to 2 week, is like really you're doing an assessment
Every 15 days, the 10th and the 25th, every 15 days. Yeah. And it gives you that idea of like what, so when someone presents an opportunity, hey, do you want to purchase this? Or do you want to add this marketing piece? Or I looked at it as I wanted to hire a business coach. Well, let me look historically. Am I bringing enough in my expense account that I can afford the cost of a business coach? Okay, yes, I can afford a cost of a business coach. Am I getting the hot dog business coach, or am I getting the steak business coach? To figure out what I can afford based upon, I know what my monthly expenses are. I know what's sitting in that account monthly. What can I actually afford? So to be able to make the informed business decision about how you want to spend your money, really just taking control of how you want to spend it. So how does Profit First change lives? Personally, it has changed my life, which you can, I'm sure, see that I'm passionate about it. It changed my life in allowing me to start my own business, really getting into the numbers before I took the leap that, okay, my husband brings in this amount, what do I have to bring in? What do I have to lead generate and close each month to be able to hit these numbers? It also allows me to, when I spill a cup of tea on my computer on a Wednesday morning that I thought I was gonna die, that I have the ability to make the decision that, you know what, I have the money in the account, I'm gonna make the decision to purchase a backup computer. It's changed my life because it allows me to pay myself a salary rather than like, oh great, I had 5 transactions closed this month. I got, on my end, we charge a couple $100 for a transaction closing, like, okay, I have $1,000. Like, well, that doesn't really get me anywhere. So what do I need to do and where do my numbers need to be so that I can pay myself a salary? And even then, like, I love looking at my operating account and seeing like, cool, I'm covered for 6 months, or cool, I'm covered for 3 months, so that there's not this constant worry about, like I said before, oh, we'll just go sell another house. We'll just go sell another house. I'll just find another lead. We'll just sell another house. It really puts you in charge as a business owner and entrepreneur to know where your dollars are going, tell them where to go, and then be able to grow your business with profit rather than leading growth. The last one I have, and I know we're kind of early here. Free resources. So if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. And I recommend it as well because I know Kim posted the audiobook online. He has some worksheets and tips through here on how to fill these out. So like what we went through today on page, let's see. You can see mine has all the tabs and coffee skills. On page 63, he step-by-step walks you through each calculation we did here, why you did it, where it fits. And this isn't just a real estate course or a real estate method, like this is across all businesses. So when you're reading his book, he's talking about a florist and he's talking about a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and it's not just real estate, so it's applicable to any business. But he has a ton of free resources. Why didn't my link work? Did it work? Oh, it still didn't work. I feel like that's a perfect sound for what I'm dealing with right now. No. None of this is working.
Question, like,
Yeah.
so at the end of the year, you ever empty your expense account or start fresh?
I leave it there so I know what's there for next year. Because although I see what you're saying, but I leave it there so I know what I have in for my expenses for January, and it gives me an idea. I look at it so like I know what my monthly expenses are. So we'll have like a pretty set expenses, and then we have our off ones that like change a little bit, but we can guesstimate, like for example, my monthly expenses are $3,500. So then I know in my operating account, even if there is, if I had 10 months of operating expenses there, I may have $35,000, but that allows me to know I can either, if I didn't make any money for the next 10 months, I can cover my expenses for 10 months, or I can decide you know, maybe I want to hire another person because I have $35,000 to pay my operating. So I never clear it out to start fresh. It's like I'm not online anymore. Either way, if you search Profit First Free Resources, it'll take you to that link. And he has like anything you could possibly imagine. So he has blank templates of that's something I pulled off his website. Anything you could possibly need as far as figuring out percentages or worksheets to work off of things, all of that he has available on that free resources site. That was all I had. That was the last slide. So and my computer has quit working. Any ahas or anyone looking to implement Profit First sooner than later?
Definitely didn't design that you were looking at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you have on that sheet there to work.
Yeah, I was looking at this and I found it interesting. I'm like, wow, do I really want to make over 2,500 because, or 250 because it goes, or say goes less.
Right, it goes less and less and less, but when you look at it, so like if you look at percentage wise, of course, money isn't planned, what's the percentage under? It's 50% under the first column. What's the percentage under the second column?
20, and then it's like 0 at Robert Kiyosaki and 10 million. So like,
Okay, I'm just grabbing a calculator here. So you said 35% of the, what's the next range? So it's, is it,
20
so what's the revenue on column B?
revenue. They're all 100%.
Okay, so 500,000 at 0.35, that's $175,000. And if you were, so if you were looking at column B and you were taking 35% of the revenue, 35% of $500,000 is $175,000. Where 50% of 250 is going to be $150,000. So it's still more money than you were making before. But the thing is, when you're getting to that portion revenue wise, the likelihood you're doing all the work at that point in time is very slim. You probably have a team of people, and that's why you see the operating expense increasing. So really, you're still getting a raise. You just got a $25,000 raise, and you should technically be working a little bit less because you have a team that's
Yeah, I
working
like
for you.
that. Yeah. But why does it say 0? If I'm making $10 million and I get 0.
So at that point in time, they're assuming that if your company is making $10 million, that you are not working in it anymore and you're getting dividends from the profits, because that's the other piece you're forgetting. So when you're looking at, because what's the profit on $10 million? 20%. Said 10 million, that's 2 million in profit. And if you took half of that, that's $1 million. So the other piece of that changes is when you're looking, so it really, how your business changes across that as well. Because when you're looking at that 0 to 250, you probably are working just yourself and a teammate or two. When you start pushing higher, you're now looking at a corporation. Like if you're making $10 million in revenue, you have a team, you have salaries that you're paying, you have the other pieces that come into that. But on the other piece,
your operating expenses more than double.
right, your operating expense goes up, your profit goes up, you're then able to profit share with your employees, and your money is coming out of the profit.
Yes. That's later on the line. I need to remember my number.
This is-
So-
I need this class. This was excellent.
Thank you. I'm glad.
So that twice a month sounds like a lot. Right now, I see that on the website.
So I have somewhere else.
I know. So you all finished? All done? Oh,
I have
Lauren.
questions.
Okay.
You wanna have
Let's-
questions?
yes.
Does anyone do?
No, you
Okay.
answer
Okay.
questions.
Okay, perfect.
So guys, did you guys enjoy class with Lauren?
Yeah.
Amazing. You got everybody buzzed up now. So Kim came in to get me, she was like, we have to get all this stuff together, like, we have to get all this stuff together. It's some good stuff though, so, maybe we can get you to come back another, in a couple of months.
Sure.
A little bit, go over this again, make sure, so we recorded everything, so
Okay.
you guys can go back, and the people that are online, we actually have some forms, we have copies of the forms that Lauren used, so we can give, we're gonna, can we
They're
upload
all
it?
also, those forms are also on the website, and
Okay.
I can send that to Kim to send out to everyone
Okay.
on
Okay.
a free. But like I
Helen
said,
said thank you.
oh, thank you.
Aw.
If
We
you
love Helen.
Google free resources, Michael McAllow's Profit First, like, it'll take you straight to that. My computer's still spinning the wheel of death. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
But.
We have, does anyone have any questions for Lauren? We want to ask, in addition to what we've already asked.
How can we work with you, Lauren?
That's an excellent question. So I do own Relief Leverage. We do transaction coordination and listing management. I have some business cards I'm happy to pass out. We work with Keller Williams agents. We also work with several other brokerages in the area. Feel free to give me a call or reach out on our website, www.reliefleverage.com. And we'd love the opportunity to explore with anyone if that's something you're looking at.
Just so you know, we're her favorites.
I highly recommend.
Thank you, Jackie.
Me too. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
That's what you want to come to.
Yes,
Okay, so we got a little crew on here.
yeah.
Y'all ain't the only one.
Oh, excuse me. We're selfish, we're gonna keep all to ourselves. She's awesome. though. So Lauren, we're gonna get you to come back another time.
Absolutely. I'd love
So you
to.
can come, we love it. Kim, you can take the same off now. Okay, guys, we will see you next Wednesday. Who we have coming up next Wednesday, Kim? Just so we know.
Andrew Plank,
Andrew Plank, and what's the title?
hold on a second,
Pause, please.
because he's doing two different ones. I don't know which one.
Okay, so while Kim's looking, I want everyone to write down in their calendar, what's the date already? I already told you guys. January the 8th through the 11th. I'm sorry, January the 9th through the 11th. I went to Glover U. Jeff Glover has this program called Unreal. And so I went, it's given by the Glover University. And I went last week, Jay Cleveland and myself went. That thing was amazing. So I want you all to be prepared to go January the 9th through the 11th. It's gonna be in Orlando, Florida. I know, so it's gonna be someplace warm.
That's what I had.
And so it's gonna be, it's gonna be life changing for our business. So I have like a whole